Okay, so welcome back. In this section of the webinar, we'll talk about strategy and content planning. So, strategy then. So if you remember back in part one, we talked about using social media to reach, engage, and build community online. And we looked at some of the major social media platforms, and I signposted to information about how you can set up accounts on them. So imagine you've done all that. So now sort of comes the tricky bit, really, running your social media accounts. And before you sort of dive into that, it's really helpful to consider a strategy. Doing so will help you define and achieve your goals for social media. It will help you focus on reaching the right audiences for your hub. It will also help you choose the best platforms to do that. And it will help you manage resources as well and think about, the time required to run social media accounts. So, this is all about making sure that you're getting the most out of your work on social media. And strategies can sometimes worry people, or just the word strategy can seem a bit daunting. But do remember that actually this doesn't have to be like a complicated process. Writing a strategy doesn't need to take a long time. And also, even if you've already got your Green Hub on social media and you're happily posting away, but you don't have a strategy, well, it's not too late to make one. You can do or even redo this at any time. So let's look at how we might write a strategy. I've got a sort of nice and simple 6-step plan for you, and we even have like a worksheet that you can download, and you can use this to help create your own strategy. There's a link there, and I'll put this online as well. But I'll also go through it with you here first. So, step one then is to define your goals. So this is about asking yourself, what is it that you want to achieve with social media? And this is a really important question. And ideally, you'll be as specific as you can. So, do you want to increase awareness of your project? Perhaps you need to establish your project within like a particular sector, or maybe you're hoping to connect more with people that live locally to your Green Hub. Whatever it is, you hope to sort of really define what you think social media should be helping you with. And ideally, if your Green Hub or your project has its own strategy or perhaps a business plan or something, then you want to try and align your social media strategy with that. And this just makes sure that you're all singing from the same hymn sheet and your work on social media is helping your sort of greater cause, right? So define your goals. And then step two is about identifying your target audience. So who exactly is it that you want to reach and engage with your social media content? And it helps to think about two different types of data here. So you can think about sort of demographic data, like how old they are, where they live, what's their cultural background, what's their family status, occupation, that sort of thing. And again, remember, your project might have an overarching strategy or business plan. Sometimes you have obligations to fund with funders that you're going to engage a particular group of people. So, you can look at that, and that can help you identify your target audience for social media as well, like link it up. You could also look at psychographics as well. So this is about the interests or the activities, the sort of the opinions, the values, and the beliefs of your target audience. And a little tip here, if you're stuck on this, but perhaps you can think about who you're already engaging in your project, and is it that you want more people like them? In which case, what are they into? What are their values and beliefs? And that will help you define your audience. The next step in this process is to think about your resources. So this is about the time and the sort of financial budgets that you might have. So what resources do you have to run your social media accounts? This is really important because it can take a lot of time and energy to do this work. So do you have a financial budget for social media? Will you be using it to advertise? If so, how much? But also think about who is going to do this work. You can think about whether they have any training needs. If it's a volunteer, is this a reasonable request on their time? And also, what if they move on, right? Do you have a backup? And that's really important when you think about things like passwords and so on. you know, who's doing this work. Next step is about choosing the platforms that you're going to use for social media. And at this point, we start sort of looking back to those first three questions to help answer this. So as an example, you know, you might find that the goals you laid out, your social media goals and your target audience suggest that, say, like Facebook is perhaps the best platform for you to use, and maybe a Facebook page is an appropriate channel for your hub. But it might also have suggested that Instagram could be good for you too. But perhaps in step three, you identified that you've got some limited resources. So maybe, you know, you don't do Instagram, you just focus on Facebook, because it's really important to remember that you don't need to do it all. Actually, you don't need to be everywhere. Often just doing sort of one thing really well is much better than doing lots of things poorly. So make a decision at this stage. What platform, you know, on social media are you going to use? Are you going to focus on? And then step five, nearly there. So this is all about content. So you know, the stuff that you're actually going to post on social media. So here you can ask yourselves questions like, you know, what sort of content will you share? What sort of things go on at your hub that people might be interested to find out about? You know, what will make up the sort of the main sort of content for your social media channel? Can you create video content? You know, do you have sort of the capacity and skills to do that? Also, how often will you post? You know, it's really good to sort of try and think about what's achievable there. And again, you could think about resources and so on. Perhaps you could think about what hashtags you might use. Um, and again, you know, this is really about sort of linking back to that, the first things about, you know, your goals, you know, what your target audience might want to hear about. You know, you need someone, like I said, to sort of make that content. It needs to be on your appropriate, you know, it needs to be appropriate content for the channel that you're using. So it's all starting to sort of link together, right? And then finally, step six. And step six is about measuring your success. So this is about how you intend to measure the success of your social media activity. So how will you know when you've reached your goals, or how will you know when, you know, you're engaging your target audience? So think about what kind of metrics are going to be useful for you here. So things like, you know, reach, you know, the number of people that are seeing your work, or engagement, how well are people engaging with your content? And perhaps you also want to monitor your social media demographics, so you can start to check that this is aligning with your target audience. Um, and you can also think about how often you will measure and review what's working, and how you will act on what you've learned. So, you know, perhaps if something isn't working, you need to be able to adjust and change your plans. So that's it. There's 6 steps then to a strategy. If you work through those, then you're ready to go. So you define your goals, identify your target audience, understand your resources, choose the right channels, and consider your content, and then measure your success. And don't forget, you can use our worksheet if you want to do it for yourself. You know, download it, maybe set aside just like 20 minutes, half an hour, you know, make yourself a nice cup of tea and just work through each step. And then when you're done, don't forget to share your strategy with others and to use it as a guide for moving forwards. So that means, you know, sort of checking back on it regularly to see that you're still on track, and review it as well. You could update it down the line, you know, if, say, like your goals change and so on. So, right, so we've got ourselves a strategy then. So now it's time to think about content, right? So you've already laid out in your strategy some general ideas about the kind of content, you know, you'll post and how often. It's helpful to go into this in more detail now. And you can actually make a content plan. This will be really helpful for you. Content plans ensure that you're being organized, right? So you're planning ahead, you know what's coming up, you're more efficient. It allows you to be more creative because you're giving yourself time to think about what you might want to do. And it means that you're relevant, you're staying relevant, on track. You know, you're not sort of wandering off with different content that doesn't sort of link back to your strategy and your goals. So when we talk about content types, all the different types of content that you can post on social media, we just mean the different ways that you might share information. And there's sort of lots of different types of content. Here's just a few of them. And it's helpful to post in different ways, you know, over time, so sort of keep it mixed up. You know, you could have just sort of like little text posts, or you could include photos. You could post sort of GIFs and memes, you know, sort of like that bring you back to perhaps something that's kind of current that people are talking about online. Videos, you could ask questions, you could run polls, you could post your events. I put a little note here though that something to consider, although I think you should sort of mix it up and use different types of content regularly. And the social media sort of algorithms, which is basically like the sort of the machine that runs the platform, will generally prefer posts that include photos and ideally video content over sort of text only. And when I mean prefer, it means that it's more likely that it will sort of be seen then in other people's news feeds. So basically posts with videos or photos usually have a much better reach. But as well as thinking about the different types of content that you could post, it's also really helpful to think about the purpose of your content. And this just sort of helps you stay a bit focused when you're thinking of ideas of what you're going to say or do on social media. So as quite a sort of good rule of thumb, I would say that you want to try to maintain like an even mix of posts that either engage, educate, or entertain your audience. So, you know, engaging posts are designed to sort of spark maybe conversation or encourage just interaction of some kind. So this could be posts that ask questions, that invite comments, or include some kind of call to action, such as, you know, sign up to our event here, and so on. Educational posts are designed to inform your followers about your work. So these could be news stories, sort of updates or reports. It can also be like tips or tutorials. And then entertaining posts are simply about being sort of fun and friendly, sort of sharing, you know, the joy and the fun of your green hub. So these could be sort of humorous anecdotes, memes, sort of fun videos, you know, just sort of stuff that kind of shares, like I said, like the joy and the fun of what you do and entertain people. So how do we bring all this together then into a sort of content plan? And I've got another worksheet that you can download. It's just a really sort of simple plan of like posts that we might do for the week ahead. And I filled out an example, so we can zoom in on that. So in this example, I've sort of planned out some content for a Facebook page for like an imaginary green hub. And first of all, you'll see that I haven't got something for every day. This is because, you know, maybe when I wrote my strategy, I decided I'd aim for sort of 3 posts a week. But I have been sure to post, to spread those posts out over the week. And I've got a mixture of post types and purposes. So let's take a sort of closer look then. So on Tuesday, I'm going to remind everyone about an event that we're running this weekend. So I'm going to say, don't forget to join us at our seed swap on Saturday, 10 AM at the health centre. Who's coming along? And then I'll link to the event online. So, you know, this is a post that's designed to engage people. I've deliberately put a question in there, who's coming along? And I want to invite sort of comments to say, yes, I'll be there, that kind of thing. And also a link to that event so that people can click on that and perhaps kind of sign up through that. So I'm going to be engaging people with this event that's coming up. Then on Thursday, I'm going to plan to post a video that I've made of Darren, our newest volunteer. And in the video, he's talking about why he decided to join us. So this is a different type of post. It's a video and it's a different purpose. It's to educate. So this is about telling people, first of all, that we have a volunteer program and showing them, you know, why it's good for people like Darren. And, you know, perhaps other people like Darren will see it and, you know, be inspired to perhaps join us as a volunteer as well. And then on Saturday, I'm going to thank everyone for coming to the event, which we mentioned on Tuesday. And I'm going to share some photos from it. So another different type of post with lots of pictures in, and a post which serves to entertain. This is just about showing people what a fun time we had, and perhaps for sort of added social media points, I'll tag the people in those photos as well, so they all get to see themselves, and perhaps, you know, that will encourage some likes and some comments maybe. And so hopefully you can see then that when you plan things out like this, you could start to, first of all, get that balance of content. So you're regularly trying different things, and that you're organized and you can think ahead. So in this case, you're reminding people at events before in good time. And also you're probably going to be more likely to remember to take photos of that seed swap event because you know that you'll need to put them on Facebook. And also you're giving yourself time to be maybe creative and start, creating videos. So we've put in a date where we're going to share a video. So, you can start to sort of have a play around with that. And so, if you wanted to, you could use this worksheet as a template for your own content plan, or you could create your own. But I really advise just sort of sketching out a bit of a plan ahead. It really, really helps you to make the most out of social media. Right, break time again. So that's the end of part 2. We've covered strategy and content planning. After our break, we're going to look at perhaps going a bit further. So we'll look at how we see our data and insights, and we'll explore social media advertising. See you shortly.